Kentucky. This is WYMT Mountain News at 11.
Good evening, I'm Connor James. We begin tonight in Clay County, where we now know the name of a former Kentucky State Police trooper killed in a crash on the Hal Rogers Parkway. Officials identified the man as 43-year-old Donald Lauren Holliday of Hazard. Troopers say Holliday lost control of his vehicle and crossed the center line, hitting a commercial truck head-on. Tonight, many in the area are mourning his loss, including his fellow troopers who responded to that call.
It's kind of surreal when you get caught in an accident, you know, and you're going through the vehicle and you see it's one of you, a fellow brother in gray. Even though he was retired, he was still a Kentucky State Trooper.
Holliday recently became the first school resource officer for the Jackson Police Department. In a Facebook post, they said he, quote, will be greatly missed by all who knew him. Dispatchers tell us the Hal Rogers Parkway opened back up tonight at around 10:30. Well, meanwhile, 3 people had to be airlifted after a crash in Magoffin County this afternoon. We are told 3 different helicopters were called to the Cow Creek exit on the Mountain Parkway. Now, officials have not released what caused the crash or the condition of the victims. Well, 9 miners are headed to Charleston. Tomorrow, Black Jewel is back in court for an evidentiary hearing about the future of the coal sitting on the railroad tracks. The miners are still blocking the tracks in Cumberland, not letting that coal that they mined in Cumberland's Clover Lick mine pass through. WYMT's Emily Bennett talked to the miners as they anxiously await tomorrow's hearing.
July 29th is a day these Black Jewel miners will remember forever. The day they took a stand for what they believe in.
We're pretty strong still. I know some people think that we've died out.
They're going on more than 6 weeks of sitting alongside the tracks, waiting for pay.
We're dealing with a lot of different things, dealing with court, dealing with heat, dealing with other people thinking, we're keeping them out of work.
Wednesday afternoon, miners will be back in the Charleston courtroom. Chris Rowe is testifying, claiming his coal will not move.
If we got a chance to stand up and voice our side to the judge, then I'll be more glad to do it.
The judge previously ordered that the coal in the Clover Lick mine cannot be moved, but that order could be lifted.
Our bargaining position hasn't changed, that these guys are not going to leave the tracks until they get paid.
Attorney Ned Pillersdorf is confident the judge will continue to be on their side.
So far, we've done very well in bankruptcy court. I have no complaints about the judge. I've got some complaints about the way Black Jewel has treated these miners.
But in the chance the order is lifted and the coal is moved,
We would have a lot of anger if that does happen. But, it's just, we take it step by step.
hoping Wednesday's hearing will get them back in the mines.
When we're working every day, we gripe and complain about needing a day off and this, that. And, now here we are 6 weeks into this, and we're like, man, let's go back to work.
Waiting for the answers they've been waiting for. In Harlan County, Emily Bennett, WYMT Mountain News.
The evidentiary hearing will take place in Charleston, West Virginia. It will begin at 2 tomorrow afternoon.
Well, it was another beautiful day here in the mountains, definitely on that hot and humid side, and really only got to deal with that one more time before we get a nice little break of the heat. Looking into downtown Whitesburg, though, not seeing much over there. Could see some patchy fog a little bit later tonight. Early into tomorrow, satellite and radar has been on the quiet side for today. Like I said, didn't have to deal with any of those rain chances or really any of those clouds as well. Temperatures not too bad. They're seeing those lower 70s, still pretty warm if you're looking into Pikeville, 76, still pretty warm 78 over into Lexington, 79 in Louisville, upper 60s if you're looking down into Somerset, Williamsburg, and into Harlan. Now, most of us really going to stay around those mid to upper 60s. We'll see a few clouds here and there, but fog once again possible late tonight, early as we head into tomorrow. Now, your headlines for tonight, like I said, tomorrow is going to be another pretty warm day in the mountains, but after that, looks like a cooler trend start to set up across the mountains, and we'll also talk a little bit more about Hurricane Dorian coming up in just a few short minutes. Connor.
All right, thank you, Paige. Speaking of Dorian, we're getting a better look at the destruction from that hurricane, the strongest storm on record to strike the Bahamas and blamed for at least 7 deaths so far. The damage from the slow-moving storm is staggering, and along parts of coastal Florida, the effects of Dorian are already being felt as the storm lumbers about 100 miles offshore. CBS's Nicole Killian reports from Atlantic Beach, Florida.
Hurricane Dorian spent a day and a half battering the Bahamas, but it could take months or more to recover from the destruction. The Abaco Islands bore much of the brunt as Dorian's sheer force and slow pace decimated homes and communities. In Freeport, neighbors used jet skis and boats to rescue people stranded by flooding and heavy rain.
I'm coming.
One journalist there turned the camera on himself as he and his family waded through chest-deep floodwaters. Dr. Ed Mobley last spoke to his wife, a physician and ICU nurse, on Sunday as the storm was bearing down.
The ceiling was dropping, and she said the whole house was shaking pretty violently.
Tuesday, he got word she's okay.
Alive is kind of what I'm going with.
Bahamian officials say they might not be able to deploy search and rescue teams until Wednesday, but the U.S. Coast Guard says it has begun to fly in relief supplies.
We are concentrating very much on parts, fuel, people, communications gear.
Forecasters don't expect Florida to take a direct hit, but are warning of potentially dangerous conditions along the coast. Tropical storm force winds are already whipping up waves, and bands of rain are pelting the shore.
There'll be storm surge, there'll be some flooding.
Mandatory evacuation orders are in effect for certain areas, but curiosity seekers are venturing out.
It's a beautiful time to see the nature, so that's why we're here.
Dorian could still make landfall in the Carolinas later this week. Nicole Killian, CBS News, Atlantic Beach, Florida.
The Walt Disney Company has already donated $1 million to relief efforts in the Bahamas. Well, Kroger is asking customers not to carry a gun into its stores. The request comes just hours after Walmart made a similar announcement. Kroger says it will also call on lawmakers to pass gun reform laws, such as requiring stronger background checks. Last March, the company stopped selling guns in its 45 Fred Meyer stores in the Pacific Northwest. No word on how the grocery store chain plans to enforce that request. Well, today we are learning more about the allegations against the director of the Housing Authority in Williamsburg. James Lovett is accused of forging thousands of dollars in checks. Police in southern Kentucky say the misappropriation of federal housing dollars could have gone back several years. Lovett is responsible for at least two. They say they recovered receipts claiming some people did work, but that work was never performed. Officials plan to present this to the grand jury in October. Lovett could also face federal charges since federal money was involved. Well, school safety is a big focus for state leaders. That's why they pushed for a new state law that adds protections for students across Kentucky. One of those additions is a school security marshal. Victor Puente talked to the person filling that role about the state's goals for safety.
While the position of Kentucky School Security Marshal is a new one, the man filling that role isn't new to policing in public schools.
I actually became a school resource officer in 1999, right after the Columbine incident.
Ben Wilcox would eventually go on to train officers at the Department of Criminal Justice Training. The school security law passed last session created the marshal position and tasked them with hiring compliance officers to make sure public schools were following mandated practices.
Their job, starting at the first of the year, will be to visit every local district school in the state of Kentucky.
They'll make sure schools are locking doors, buzzing people in, and checking for IDs before letting students be checked out. They'll also be learning.
We're not looking for just compliance. What we're looking for is best practices. So if we've got a school that's doing a fantastic job in one set of safety regulations or security, and we can highlight that.
I asked Wilcox about the incidents we've already seen this school year involving weapons in or near schools. He told me he considered that to be the system working because students were willing to tell someone what they had seen.
We want the climate of our students to feel safe going to someone. And it may not be a teacher, it may not be a school resource officer, but it's someone in that school that they feel like they can confide in.
I also asked Wilcox about metal detectors. They aren't required for schools, but some have them, and some parents want to see them in more places.
But if the school system feels like that's something they need or could utilize, I think that that's a positive thing.
By 2021, and as funds allow, every school in Kentucky is required to have a resource officer. But Wilcox says everyone working in the school system will be playing a role. In Madison County, Victor Puente, WKYT.
Wilcox said while his office is in Richmond, he plans to spend as much time as he can traveling the state, visiting the more than 1,400 schools he is responsible for keeping safe. Well, it was a big day for the City of London as they are now able to officially take over the Levi Jackson State Park. The city worked on this project for almost 2 years, and early today the state handed over the title to the city. Officials say they are excited to get started on some upgrades and new projects for the park.
One of the first things that we're going to try to do is to upgrade the camping area, because that is the heart of that park. We have visitors from all over the country that are there every weekend.
The official name of the park will now be the Levi Jackson Wilderness Road Park. Well, a cabin from the Pioneer Village in Knott County got a new home today. It is now located at the Battle of Leatherwood site in Perry County. This is where the Civil War battle reenactment is held every year. Chairman of the reenactment says it was donated to them to preserve history and promote tourism of the site.
Look at these buildings here. Nobody builds one like this anymore. I mean, this is history.
The cabin will serve as a gift shop during events. The chairman plans to bring at least 2 other structures from the Pioneer Village to the battleground site as well.
And still to come at 11, a cold front arrives tomorrow, which will bring cooler temperatures, but will it bring those rain chances? I'll have those details coming up.